Almost 7 months pregnant and exhausted after a long, unwanted day at a wedding, Alicia Bramfield longed for rest. That night, as she lay in a quiet hotel room, she was unaware that a man she had known for years was watching her intently, and something about him felt wrong. The following morning, a strange Divatsata call was made from a gas station. When police arrived, the caller looked them in the eye and confessed, "It was me. I did it." What truly transpired in that hotel room? And why did a young woman, pregnant with her first child, never make it home? Born on August 28, 1990, in Joliet, Illinois, Alicia was the daughter of Sherry and James. She grew up alongside her sister Brianna and brothers Luke, Chase, and Colton, as one of 5 siblings. From a young age, Alicia was recognized for her infectious energy and cheerful nature. Her family, especially her mother and grandmother, was her greatest support and comfort. The loss of her grandmother left a deep void in her heart, yet Alicia's zest for life and vibrant spirit remained unshaken. She was a lively, active girl who always wore a smile and embraced adventure. At school, Alicia was engaged and spirited. Outside of classes, she loved spending time outdoors. She attended Joliet Catholic Academy, graduating in 2008, then pursued studies in criminal justice and forensic psychology at Western Illinois University. Her bond with her mother grew even stronger after her parents' separation, and she spent most of her life living with Sherry. When her mother remarried, Alicia was genuinely happy, dreaming of a big, loving family of her own someday. Becoming a mother was one of her deepest aspirations, a purpose she felt strongly within herself. At 16, Alicia secured a job with Grand Flower Growers, creating floral arrangements sold at a nearby Home Depot. Her natural talent for design and her creativity brought joy to others, and the job offered flexibility, steady income, and seasonal work, ideal for a full-time student. However, beneath this seemingly perfect opportunity, there was an unsettling side. Her supervisor, 35-year-old Brian Cooper, soon took an inappropriate interest in her. What started as routine work conversations gradually turned into unwanted advances. Brian, nearly twice Alicia's age, pushed for a relationship she repeatedly rejected. It was not only inappropriate but deeply disturbing, especially since Alicia had to see him nearly every day, navigating a difficult and uncomfortable situation. She couldn't simply abandon her job, as her income was vital to support her during college. Determined to maintain professionalism, she never encouraged or reciprocated Brian's advances. Yet, he relentlessly pursued her, disregarding every boundary she set. Alicia responded by reporting his behavior multiple times, describing how he would lash out whenever she rejected him or interacted with other male colleagues. He called her offensive names, spread false rumors, and created a hostile work environment. Exploiting his authority, he denied her breaks, assigned extra hours as punishment for her lack of interest, and falsely claimed she was his girlfriend among co-workers. Despite enduring this harassment for 5 years, Alicia remained resilient, juggling her studies, personal life, and an increasingly toxic workplace. By the time she was 21, the situation had not improved, and she still faced Brian's disturbing behavior at Grand Flower Growers. Then, in early 2012, her life took an unexpected turn. She discovered she was pregnant. The father was a fellow student, not Brian, who chose not to be involved in the child's life. Though devastated by his absence, Alicia was overwhelmed with joy at the prospect of becoming a mother and resolved to give her baby a good life. Quitting her job was impossible. She needed every dollar to support herself and her unborn child while completing her education. Eventually, she learned she was having a girl, and she lovingly named her Ava Lucille, a name symbolizing her deep love and hope for her daughter. As her pregnancy progressed, Alicia felt an ever stronger bond with her unborn child, eagerly awaiting the moment they would finally meet. However, her peaceful anticipation was marred by the ongoing nightmare of Brian Cooper. Even after learning about her pregnancy, he intensified his controlling behavior. Instead of offering support, he made her work additional hours, altered her schedule without warning, and threatened her job if she missed medical appointments. Despite her efforts to remain professional, his unwanted attention persisted. At one point, he tasked her with running personal errands, including walking his dog, something no employee should endure. When she refused, he threatened to fire her. Faced with the imminent arrival of her baby, Alicia knew leaving her job was not an option. Every dollar was crucial for her and her child. Her complaints to management yielded little more than a request for Brian to leave early and attend anger management classes, sessions he never attended. Despite her perseverance, the harassment continued, casting a shadow over her pregnancy and future. Over the course of several weeks, Alicia's exhaustion deepened, draining her both physically and emotionally. Desperate for support, she confided in her mother, Sherry, sharing everything in hopes that someone would finally listen and intervene. Despite her efforts, filing complaints, standing her ground, and remaining resilient, no one held Brian accountable for his actions. Then, in August of that year, Brian approached Alicia with a new demand. He wanted her to attend his sister's wedding with him. She immediately refused, finding the idea of spending a weekend with her abuser intolerable. Yet Brian refused to accept her refusal, threatening her job if she didn't comply. Faced with a difficult choice, Alicia hesitated, knowing that refusing could cost her employment, especially during her final months of pregnancy. She confided in her mother about the invitation, and Sherry urged her to quit her job altogether. Brian, however, insisted it was merely a friendly gesture, assuring them that the wedding party would stay at the same hotel and that he would behave himself. Those words offered Alicia some reassurance, and she reluctantly agreed to go, setting strict boundaries. She made it clear this was not a date. She was attending solely as a friend, trusting that others nearby would help if she ever felt unsafe. On August 18th, Alicia and Brian traveled to Wisconsin, heading to Sand Bay Beach Resort. She believed the rest of the family would be there and that she wouldn't be left alone. However, her assumption was quickly shattered. Upon arrival, she realized they weren't staying at the same hotel as the wedding guests. Instead, they were completely isolated, with no family or friends nearby, just the two of them. Understandably, Alicia felt anger and anxiety. She immediately texted her mother saying they had argued and were heading home. Sherry found this strange, since Brian was supposed to walk his sister down the aisle, making leaving seem unlikely. Soon after, Alicia sent another message claiming they had reconciled and decided to stay. Though it might seem suspicious in retrospect, Alicia genuinely believed she was staying. Later that day, she attended the wedding with Brian, and there's a photo of them smiling together. But behind that smile, the truth remained hidden. Brian was once again pressuring Alicia to pretend they were a couple. Despite her repeated clarifications, he continued crossing boundaries. With no one around to intervene, Alicia reached her breaking point. She was exhausted by the manipulation, lies, and control. All she wanted was to move forward, focus on her baby, and leave this nightmare behind forever. She made it unequivocally clear that once the wedding weekend was over and they returned to Illinois, she was done. No more awkward friendship, no more professional courtesy, just complete separation. Alicia was severing all ties with Brian Cooper, and honestly, who could blame her? After years of enduring unwanted attention and relentless pressure from her boss, she had finally reached her breaking point. Yet, she found herself stranded in Wisconsin, miles from home, without her own vehicle. Brian had driven them there, leaving her no choice but to depend on him for the return journey. When Alicia told him she wanted nothing more to do with him, something in Brian shifted. He didn't protest immediately, but his silence spoke volumes. He was sulking, simmering with anger and rejection. To make matters worse, he began drinking heavily, and with each glass his mood darkened further. By the time the wedding concluded, the atmosphere was thick with tension. They returned to the hotel where they were staying. Although they had separate beds, sharing a room with Brian was the last thing Alicia wanted. If she had a choice, she wouldn't have spent another moment under the same roof as him. But exhaustion overtook her. Nearly 7 months pregnant, she had been on her feet all day, managing not only the wedding, but also Brian's constant manipulation. All she craved was sleep and to get through the night. The next morning's departure loomed, and Alicia knew she just had to hold on a little longer. Meanwhile, Brian couldn't face what was coming. He understood that this was the end. Alicia had set a firm boundary, and he was losing control over her for good. That realization sent him into a downward spiral. As Alicia finally drifted into sleep, Brian sat nearby, drinking and watching her. For nearly 2 hours he simmered in anger, his thoughts darkening. Then, clinging to a desperate, twisted hope, he woke her and asked one last time if she would go out with him. Alicia's response was resolute. That single word ignited Brian's fury. He snapped. In a violent outburst, he attacked Alicia as she lay in bed, startled awake by the assault. She fought desperately, pleading for her life and her unborn children. But Brian persisted, and in a horrific act of violence, he took Alicia's life along with that of her unborn daughter. It's chilling to imagine Alicia's final thoughts, knowing she was hours away from returning home, only to be attacked by the man who had tormented her for years. The nightmare did not end there. After killing Alicia, Brian committed an even more heinous act. He violated her dignity in death by taking photographs of her lifeless body. Later, he passed out in the bathtub. When morning arrived, he attempted to drown himself, but failed. Still soaked, he left the house and walked to a nearby gas station, where shocked onlookers watched him approach the counter and request to use the phone. When the Davidsoda Dentist dispatcher asked who was reporting the crime, Brian responded with chilling calmness. "It was me. I did it." Police arrived swiftly and arrested him at once. Alicia's life, vibrant and filled with love and promise, was tragically cut short far too early. She deserved so much more, as did her unborn child. During a police interview, Brian Cooper confessed to everything, but his attempt to justify his actions was pitiful. He claimed that he and Alicia had been romantically involved, insisting he sought a committed relationship while she did not. He even falsely asserted that he had backed off upon learning she was pregnant with another man's child. The only truth in his story was the motive. Alicia had made it clear she wanted nothing more to do with him. As the investigation progressed, officers visited Sand Bay Beach Resort, where Brian and Alicia had stayed. Inside their room, they found a heartbreaking scene. Alicia lay motionless on the bed, covered with a sheet, a pillow gently supporting her head. It was evident Brian had staged the scene before leaving. The police faced the difficult task of informing Alicia's family of the devastating news. When an officer arrived at Sherry's door, she immediately sensed something was wrong. The words she heard shattered her world. Her daughter and unborn granddaughter were gone, victims of homicide. Grief overwhelmed her, accompanied by a persistent sense of guilt for not protecting her daughter sooner or stopping Brian earlier. The investigation revealed a disturbing pattern in Brian's past. Alicia was not his only victim. A female co-worker had accused him of groping her, leading her to leave her job after filing a complaint. Police uncovered numerous reports of abusive behavior, including restraining a former girlfriend who refused to obey him. Despite these warnings, management had taken little action. Even more horrifying, Brian had installed hidden cameras throughout his home and in the hotel room where Alicia spent her final hours. Unaware of this invasion, Alicia was secretly filmed during routine activities, walking his dog or using the bathroom. The same invasive surveillance was later discovered in the hotel, where Brian had been secretly watching her, violating her privacy in the most sinister way. Despite overwhelming evidence, Brian pleaded not guilty. His defense argued that alcohol had impaired his judgment, claiming he didn't fully realize what he was doing. However, the prosecution countered strongly, pointing out that Brian remembered every detail, from contemplating suicide afterward to calmly calling Divitsata Dinitsit and confessing, "It was me. I did it." They argued that the murder was premeditated, not impulsive, and that Brian had made up his mind long before that weekend. Yet, despite the compelling case, the jury in the initial trial was unable to reach a unanimous verdict. Exactly 1 year after the initial trial, the evidence was once again presented in full during a second hearing. This time, the jury delivered a definitive verdict. Brian Cooper was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, one for Alicia and another for her infant. On July 27, 2014, precisely 2 years after the tragic events, Brian received a sentence of 2 life imprisonments. He is now incarcerated at Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin, a maximum security prison formerly known as Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane. This facility has housed infamous killers such as Jeffrey Dahmer, Ed Gein, and currently Chris Watts, serving time for the murders of his wife and daughters. Brian Cooper will never be free again. For the Bramfield family, the loss of Alicia and her baby created an irreplaceable void. Overcome with grief, anger, and a desire for justice, Sherry decided that Alicia's life should be remembered beyond her tragic death. She founded the Purple Project, named after Alicia's favorite color, transforming her memory into a legacy of hope. The project aims to support single mothers, Alicia's own community at a time when she desperately needed help, and provides grief counseling for parents who have lost a child. One of its most notable events, the Night of Hope, was held on the 12th anniversary of Alicia's passing. alongside grief retreats and community initiatives designed to bring light out of darkness. Sherry also pursued legal action, filing a wrongful death lawsuit against both Home Depot and Grant flower growers. Her objective was to hold these companies accountable for neglecting Alicia's repeated pleas for help. Ultimately, they were found liable for the deaths of Alicia and her baby. This case starkly illustrates that workplace harassment is not merely uncomfortable, but can be deadly. While telling someone to simply quit a toxic job might seem straightforward, the reality is often far more complex. Alicia depended on her job for her livelihood, and tragically, Brian Cooper, a man in a position of authority, exploited that vulnerability. We can only hope Alicia's story inspires others to find the courage to speak out and prompts organizations to implement serious preventative measures to protect their employees. No one should be forced to choose between their safety and their livelihood. Thank you for listening to Unreal True Crime. If you're interested in exploring more mysteries from around the world, consider checking out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we delve into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more compelling investigations.